This video was brought to you in part by the supporters of the AMTV Patreon. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to this year's run of Christmas specials on the Ident Review Extra, the show where we take a look at one individual ident each episode and give it the review it deserves. And this time around, we're taking a look at the festive sequences that represented BBC1 in the 1990s. Grab that warm brew as we go back to 1995. Another year, another festive ident for BBC1. The channel once again continued to use the virtual globe as its main sequence, as it had been since 1991. However, in the technological world, things were advancing all the time. For the virtual globe's debut, the Super Nintendo was just coming out. Now, 4 years later, the Sony PlayStation was hitting the scene. In the world of TV, programs were getting ever more ambitious, particularly with the use of computer-generated effects. So for the Christmas of 1995, BBC1 would once again experiment with the use of CG. Let's see what they came up with as audiences tuned in during December.
A family movie for Christmas Day now on BBC1. Robin Williams is a grown-up 1990s Peter Pan, rediscovering Neverland and crossing swords with Dustin Hoffman, the evil Captain Hook.
Ah, the Christmas star, an old favourite. To have the one numeral be the star atop of a Christmas tree seems like a really obvious concept. The fact it took them this long to implement it is quite surprising. We see a CG plane fly by, transforming the traditional star into the famous numeral. Now to my eyes, the plane looks computer generated, though the quality of the footage is old and I don't have the best eyesight, so it could very well be a clever piece of stop motion animation. But it looks very blocky and polygonal, so I'll take my claims and say it's a bit of CG work. Whether it is or not, the plane looks very slick for the time, though the focus quickly shifts to the one shimmering atop of the tree. Fair to say, it does look great. The constant outbursts of light help keep the focus at the top, and the plane flying about just adds that little bit of extra detail. My main criticism here would be the background. The red looks nice, but I wish they'd filled it out a little more. It could have had more decorations, some more variations of the one numeral. I honestly think there could have been a way to do this without making the overall sequence feel too cluttered or stuffed with objects. Alternatively, a gradual zoom in could have worked. Say you start seeing the tree in full, before zooming closer to the top where we see the one shining. It's all what ifs of course, but I just think it could have made this one a lot more interesting. As it stands, another static shock sequence, it does work, but is it the best of the decade? In my opinion, far from it. The 1995 Christmas ident for BBC1 does have its positive qualities, but you could also argue that it's a turning point. A point where the corporation were perhaps starting to grow a bit complacent in how they presented their festive offerings on the main channel. I mean, if you compare some of BBC1's festive sequences to what was going on BBC2, it's like chalk and cheese. Static shock sequences can and do work, but for BBC1, I would say by the middle of the 90s, it was seriously time for a switch up in how their Christmas idents were presented. Would 1996 herald the beginning of this change? Join me next time and find out. And so that brings us to the end of another episode of the Ident Review Extra. If you enjoyed this throwback to 1995, then please leave a like, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to the channel for lots more ident related content. I've been Martyn from AMTV, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Well, that does bring us to the end of another day here on AMTV. We do hope you enjoyed the programme, and a special thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and to everyone who's tuned in. Until the next broadcast, we wish you a good night.